voice of God. I'm going to pick up my bed and I'm going to walk. I need it louder in here. I need some energy in this house. I need to know that somebody's going to hear the voice, not my voice, and they're going to get up and they're going to pick up whatever it is they've been laying in, and they're going to carry that thing and get on with what God has for us. And in order to do that, we have got to think differently. It's the first step towards unlocking our future. It's the first step toward picking up that thing that you've been laying in and carrying it off. To think according to appearance, to think according to feeling is easy, but to think truth, raw truth, regardless of what it looks like, regardless of feelings, or even regardless of facts, requires a greater energy and power and faith than we have right now. Tell your neighbor, I know she's talking to me right there. We cannot look at the visible supply. So, let me take you to Genesis 18. Genesis 18, Abraham is sitting in front of his tent. And all of a sudden, now I like it like that, don't you die? It's like all of a sudden, sort of like all of a sudden Jesus shows up at that pool of Bethesda, and he's going to do something very different. And so Abraham, now I'm talking about Genesis, I'm talking about a long time ago, Abraham has had a word from God 24 years before that. And so he is sitting in front of his tent. And all of a sudden, he looks up and he sees three men in the distance. And what Abraham did at that moment was a catalyst for his destiny and the destiny of Sarah. Listen to what it says in the Amplified. But here's what it says about Abraham. He is sitting there. He's got a 24-year-old prophetic word that doesn't seem to be happening. And now three men out of nowhere suddenly are there. And the Bible says that he stood up and he ran to meet them. He ran to meet them. It's in the heat of the day. They are in a desert. And he is sitting there waiting on the prophetic word. And he doesn't even know who they are. He just gets up and he runs to meet them. At first, of course, he does not realize that it's the Lord or realize that it's three angels. But here's what he did. Here's what we're doing. Abraham interrupted what he was doing in order to host the new that God was bringing to him. He interrupted his plans. And it resulted in the fulfillment of God's promise that happened 24, not 38, but 24 years ago. Waiting for God's promise of a son that God said would come through him. He's been waiting. Tell your neighbor, I won't be denied. I won't be denied. Here's the deal. Those that are willing, say, I'm willing. Those that are willing and prepared to adjust their own plans and their schedules as God intervenes and brings the new, You're going to see new doors of personal breakthrough. How many need a personal breakthrough? You're going to see new doors of personal breakthrough and kingdom advancement open up for you. I'm just saying that. And it takes a whole lot of faith and energy and power to believe that, because I don't see it yet. Check it out. Now I'm going, not to the Amplified, I'm going to the Voice Bible. Check it out. Here's the Voice Bible. The Eternal One. That is God. That is Elohim. That is everlasting God. That is Olam El Olam. That is Yod He Vav He. He says He will speak, and then He says, I will speak, and it will be fulfilled without delay. Now, either we believe that or we don't. He goes on to say, I will fulfill what I say. The eternal Lord most certainly says, nothing I have said will wait any longer. Whatever I speak will be fulfilled without delay. So, in order for that to happen, we're going to have to have eyes to see and ears to hear the limitless riches of God. So let's just activate it right now. I see and I hear the limitless riches of God. And not only see them, because, of course, they're in another realm. But here's what we got to know. They are coming towards us. That's what Ephesians said. They're coming towards us. And they're coming towards those people who believe. Here's what we have to know. We have to know it's there. Let's activate it. Get your hands up. Listen, we're going to walk out of here activated in faith that we did not have before. We're going to come out of here activated in a voice that we have not heard before. I know it's there. Say it. I know it's there. It's coming towards those who believe. I know it's there. But let me use this term. We could say that they're in a quantum realm. The definition of quantum is something that is so small that it's unseen. It's there, you just can't see it. So let me help us just a little bit. I'm using a wireless cordless mic. Do you know how it works? It works by something that we cannot see called frequency. Cell phones work from frequency. Television, radio, computers, Wi-Fi, microphones, the handheld microphones, iPad, all of that operate on frequencies that we cannot see, but we benefit from it. Now we've got to take that over into what we're talking about concerning the prophetic word of the Lord, and we've got to be able to see what we cannot see and experience the benefit of it, just like we benefit from unseen frequencies every day. They operate on frequencies. Now, 2 Corinthians 4:18, you'll love this, Deanne. So we look not at the things that are seen. We're so messed up by the things that we see and messed up by the things that we hear. And here's Paul writing this to this new church, and he says the most incredible thing. We look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. how do we see what we cannot see? For the things which are seen are temporal, and the things that are not seen are eternal. Now let's just bump it up a notch. Romans 4 says this: God calls those things which are not seen as though they are, because they are.
Hey, Sandy, I just had a thought. We look at the things that are unseen. He doesn't say that we look at things that aren't there. They are there.
They are there.
They're just not seen because they're in a different vibration.
That's it.
It's like, you'll have to tell, you know that Bible verse that talks about how the things were made, how when the things were made out of things that were not seen.
Hebrews.
I tried to find it in Hebrews. See, this is why you need to be able to hear God's voice, and then you can look it up in the Bible. But anyway, he didn't say that the worlds were made by things that are not there. They are there. They are already there. They're just not seen by us yet.
Yet is a key thing.
Yet.
God calls those things that are not seen as though they are seen, because they are. So I'm going to use this phrase. We're going to become familiar with this phrase. I'm just going to use it. I've read numbers and numbers of books about quantum physics, quantum mechanics, all of that. Read a new one yesterday. I texted Deanne and I said, my brain is mush, didn't I? It was just all mushed up, but I do like it. So I'm just going to use this phrase right here when we're talking about God calls those things. And remember, God is not far away. God is on the inside of me. So I call those things that are not as though they are, because they are. So I'm going to use the phrase quantum faith or quantum thinking. Tell your neighbor, your thinking is the problem. But here's a great quantum thought. And this just made me happy. We can have a relationship with the God, the Elohim, the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, that created not just the world, He created the cosmos, He created the universe, He created the galaxies. We have got God so small and confined to what we can see. Now, your neighbor is more than what you can see. And our eyes are being opened to see what we cannot see. So I was thinking about that. I was thinking, so I looked up, so I can't even remember how I got there, but I was thinking about this great God, and we have Him somehow small in our thinking. And this was published in 2018, and here's what it says about this God who created the galaxies and the universe. And this was published a year ago, and it says more than a trillion, say trillion, more than a trillion planets exist beyond the Milky Way, which is our galaxy. And our galaxy, the Milky Way, has 100 billion planets in it. So, it reminded me of a movie called Toy Story. As I am just thinking of this God who is so beyond. And so I remembered this about the movie. And the first one, I took Tanner to. And, of course, he had Woody. Do you remember Woody? But my favorite character was Buzz Lightyear. And so Buzz Lightyear and Woody, I just remembered this, they were having a conversation. And Buzz Lightyear says, to Woody, you have delayed my rendezvous with Star Command. And then Woody says, you're a toy. Shut up. And then Buzz Lightyear says, you have delayed. Say no more delay. You have delayed my rendezvous with Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Oh, excuse me, no. With Star Command. And he says, shut up. You're a toy. Lift your hands. Say this. To infinity. And beyond. To infinity. And beyond. That's the God who's our God. We can have a relationship with the one who is greater than all the world's system. We can gain wisdom on how to function, how to think, how to respond, how to discern, how to receive, and how to unlock the kingdom in the boundary that He's assigned us to. Amen. To infinity and beyond. Well, that, everybody needs to watch that movie. Buzz Lightyear believes it. Well, that's quantum thoughts and quantum thinking. But here's a key from the Word of unlocking the kingdom with quantum dynamics in the spheres that God has given us. What does Proverbs 23:7 say? Let me help you. Tell your neighbor, I'm going to start remembering the Word of God. Listen, I am a word bird, and I thank God for the foundation that I had in the Word because I can remember stuff. And sometimes Deanne will say, where is this and where is that? And I know where it is. I'm not trying to be big or anything, but I do have it on the inside. But Proverbs, in case you don't know what's in Proverbs 23:7, it is a game changer right there. It is going to help us to move through this new that we're in right now. We're already in the new, and here's what it says. As a man thinks, so is he. As a man thinks, so is he. And this, yesterday or day before, Deanne, I remembered a book that we read. Well, I don't know whether you read it or not, but here is the name of the book. You'll see it when you believe it. Most of the time, we believe it when we see it. Get it? And so this man wrote this book. And he goes on to say this. Work each day on your thoughts rather than your behavior. Because it is your thinking that creates the feelings that ultimately affect your behavior.
Oh. You got to say that. You got to say that again, because the Western theology says that the most important thing is your behavior. We have tried to get people to change their behavior, when it's the good news of the gospel to renew our mind about who God is how powerful he is. You're preaching a new wave. You're preaching a new reality, because this idea of our behavior being the issue, it could be improved. But when you focus on your behavior, and the most important thing is so you can be good, so that you can get God's attention. So let's turn that around. Let's worry about what we're thinking about. Let's change our thinking. Let's change the way we think.
Work each day on your thoughts rather than your behavior. Now listen, we're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. You know what I'm saying. But
you can't do everything you want.
It is your thinking that creates the feelings that you have, which ultimately affect your behavior and your actions. So a person that is constantly slammed by circumstances, he will be, as long as he believes himself, check this out, to be a creature of outside conditions. Now, 100 years ago, because I also read yesterday a book called As a Man Thinketh. It was written 100 years ago. So here's what he said. 100 years ago, one of the greatest weaknesses of our society today is the growing attitude of victimization. Today, we call it a victim spirit. We are victims of circumstances or the creature of outside conditions. When that happens, we give our power to those circumstances. We have given our power in our life to those circumstances. So here's a profound statement. You imagine your circumstances are separate from yourself, but ultimately and intimately, it is all related to your thought world. Don't argue with it. It works. And here's what you have to do, though. You have to take responsibility that comes with taking control of your thoughts. Sometimes our old thought patterns are so old, and it's like they're rooted in. Like when you get in a rut and like you can't get it out. You can't get out of it. You have to take responsibility that comes with taking control of your thoughts. So I read a couple of these, and I'm just going to call them, I just kind of made this up, thought writers. There are a lot of amazing thought writers, and they're not necessarily Christian as we would know it, but they're brilliant in their thinking. And here's another thought writer's thoughts. You are happy because you are well. He says, no, you are well because you are happy. I remember one time, Deanna and I, this was 100 years ago or so. It was a long time ago. And we heard somebody say something along those lines, you are happy because you are well. No, you are well because you are happy. You are depressed because trouble has come. No, trouble has come because you are depressed. And this guy says, listen, I know that we get sick, but he said, to the best of your ability, just be sick and happy. Now, I don't want to make light of, there are people in this room that deal with chronic, everyday symptoms. So I just want to just adjust our thinking and say that we're coming upon that time like Abraham did. Those angels, it says the Lord So obviously, he sent those angels because something that has been delayed was about to happen.
Wow.
He said by this time next year. I mean, it was going to take 9 months to make this baby. Okay, those are amazing, and those are thought-provoking statements.
Well, they're just crazy.
And so let's just go to Ephesians, and let's see what Paul has to say. So we've got Genesis, and we've got Proverbs, and we've got Luke, and now we've got Ephesians. Say, to infinity and beyond. That's what this is. If we could believe this, we would be soaring like Buzz Lightyear did into infinity. Ephesians 1:17, that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, may give you the spirit of wisdom and revelation. That's all I need. But he goes on to say that the eyes of your understanding, eyes, apparently your understanding has eyes. Being enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of his calling and what are the riches of the glory of his inheritance. And if that is not enough, and what is the exceeding greatness of his power toward us who believe according to the working of his mighty power. It's his mighty power. So those scriptures reference several quantum, unseen things that are going to bring such benefit to the ecclesia, it's almost going to seem unbelievable. The spirit of wisdom and revelation. It's unseen. The eyes of our understanding enlightened. I see, I understand, I have an aha moment. I get it. I know what to do. I know what to say. I know how to think about something. The eyes of our understanding are enlightened. We know his calling for our lives. His power is it's not even just great, it's exceeding every limit. We feel limited. We feel limited because of our education. We feel limited because of our age. We feel limited because of finances. We feel limited because of time. We have all of these limits, and he says his power exceeds all of that. Then it also talks about supernatural believing. That is, we believe what we cannot believe. Buzz Lightyear dared to believe to infinity and beyond. And tell your neighbor, and he's a toy. So we've got the spirit of wisdom and revelation. The eyes of our understanding are enlightened. We can see. We have aha moments. We know his calling for our lives. His power is exceeding great. We have supernatural believing. Even when we can't believe, we can believe. His mighty power works. And from all of that we have talked about this morning, say this with me. I'm not going to stay in the same place.
I'm not staying.
I mean, we started out with Abraham, who's sitting in front of his tent. Somebody shows up, and it says that he got up and he ran to them. We cannot stay in the same place thinking the same thoughts. And the word of the Lord that is not going to be delayed. I'm just going to stand on my very own word. It's not going to be delayed. It's not going to be delayed. The foundational word. And there are so many words over us, so many words over this house, so many words over this state. Here's the foundational word that I'm counting on. There's going to be a revival on the face of the earth. Hey, the face of the earth. That might be the galaxies. That might be the Milky Way. I don't know. I'm not even going to confine it to the earth. Because when you read that scripture, for God so loved the world, it's not like our little ball of our world. It is the cosmos. It includes the galaxies. It includes all of that stuff that trillion planets that's on the outside of the Milky Way. There's going to be a revival on the face of the earth. And you're going to be at the forefront of it. Listen, we're going to have to move into a place of the manifested rule of God if that's going to take place, and it is going to take place. We're going to have to move from going to church to understanding the kingdom in our territory. We're going to have to stand in a place of dominion and ruling with Him. So the prayer strategies of the last season were wonderful. But we're going to add to them. They were foundational. Foundational. But we're going to add to them in this age of revival, reformation, transformation, awakening. Whatever word we want to use, and they're all valid, is going to come on the face of the earth. There's going to be incredible ideas that is going to come to us because the eyes of our understanding are enlightened and we have a spirit of wisdom and revelation. You're going to get a new thought. So I was reading about this because I'm kind of into all these thought leaders, so I was reading this. Hundreds of years ago, maybe 1,000, everyone thought that the world was flat. It was an old paradigm. And so here's what happened. In that day, I think this is back in the 1500s, scientists and religious leaders got together. Now, that would not happen today.
Maybe.
But maybe not. So, hundreds of years ago, scientists and religious leaders got together, and here's the profound thing that we did. See, not everything old is old. They asked God if the world was flat. Yeah. They asked God. And then God began to reveal truths. He revealed truths, particularly, and I've studied this scientist, astronomer named Galileo. I mean, he's got gravity, he's got astronomy, he's got all of these things that he had experiments on. But back then, they didn't have all these telescopes and all these things. They didn't have any of that stuff. And so he gets convicted and put in prison for heresy. Because it didn't line up with what the religious leaders of the day thought that the Bible said. And so, but he did good in prison. And so he gets on house arrest. And so he's able to continue his experiments. Tell your neighbor, I'm going to do some experiments with this. I'm just going to experiment. What if I changed my thinking about this situation that I am in and have been in for a long, long time? What if I just experiment with that? Because sometimes with the circumstances and the situations that you have, you almost feel like you're on house arrest. Hello. So, but he continued. You talk about somebody who thought right. Then you just take it down to all of these people, and then you get to Einstein, and he'll blow your mind with his thoughts. So, 300 years later, Einstein now is on the scene, and he calls Galileo, the guy who's in prison, but he's on house arrest, but he continues his incredible experiments. Einstein calls him the father of modern science and physics. Tell your neighbor, I hope I get vindicated before I die. I mean, he didn't exactly get vindicated until 300 years later, but he did get vindicated. So I just want to say this. God is presently revealing truths about how he created the earth and the universe and the galaxies. And it goes with everything that we have been saying this morning and how we're going to move forward, because here's what I came to say with all of this. Last week, we gave a foundational teaching on the ecclesia and the revelation of the ecclesia. And the revelation of the ecclesia came on the heels of an amazing revelation that Peter had, one of the disciples, and Jesus says, who do men say that I am? Well, you're John the Baptist, or you're Elijah. And so then Jesus says, Peter, who do you say? I mean, he's one of the 12. Who do you say that I am? And in the midst, on the defiled land of one of the most occult, dark places, perverse places in that part of the earth, he gets an incredible revelation. So we can get a revelation. No matter what defilement, no matter what's going on in the atmosphere, no matter what's going on in our homes, no matter what's going on, we can get the revelation. Jesus, you are the Christ. You are the Messiah. And on that revelation, Jesus said, I'm going to build something. I'm going to build something that the gates of hell will not prevail against. And it's called the ecclesia. Now, here's the facts. The facts are the facts, and faith is faith. Here's the facts concerning the gates. It looks like to me they are prevailing. Evil is escalating. There is darkness, this is Isaiah 60, there is darkness covering the face of the earth, and gross darkness the people. You don't have to look very far to see that. Everybody is afraid. There is fear in every part of society, and it does not seem like these secular answers are really answering anything. They don't seem to be effective. And Jesus said this upon Peter's revelation that I am Christ. I'm going to give to the ecclesia the keys. The keys of the kingdom. Doesn't seem like they've been activated. The keys of the kingdom, whatever you bind on earth, really has already been bound. That's what it really says. They've already been bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on the earth, they've already been loosed in heaven. How do you know that? Because you don't even do anything that you don't see your Father doing. You don't hear your Father. Christ in me, the hope of glory. So let me say this as we close out today. The ecclesia will not be bound by a religious spirit. Isaiah 60 comes on the scene of boundaries of darkness, chaos, fear, and antichrist cultures. Sound familiar? And then Isaiah has the audacity, because he's heard God, he's a prophet. God said, I don't even do anything in the earth unless I tell my prophets first. Arise, shine in the middle of the darkness.
Get up.
Gross darkness. Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen on you. When God appears to us in light, which, by the way, is quantum, it is a frequency. The kind of revelation that Peter had is light, like the light bulb went on. Do you know what I'm saying? And his light in this day of darkness and chaos and craziness, his light is his favor, his honor, his harvest. It's alluring, it's attractive, and the gates of hell will not prevail against that. That's just what I got to say today. The gates of hell, they're real and they are prevailing, except today I am saying they will, I'm saying what Jesus said. They will not prevail. So, to use another term from these thought thinkers, we're going to have to make a quantum leap into a different way to think and a different way to pray. So a religious spirit will keep us doing our laundry in the river forever. Now let me tell you what I mean. My dad's mom and dad lived in Arkansas. I mean, in the sticks. And they came up here to Kansas, but we would go back to Arkansas every vacation because they loved it. We all loved it. And we loved it because there wasn't any electricity. So we just thought that was like, wow. And so there was oil lamps, coal oil, kerosene, of which I have two of those that two of my grandmas had. And so us kids just thought, this is so cool. There's no electricity. And then there wasn't any inside running water. And so that was cool, that we would have to go out to the well house, and we would have to draw the water, and then we would bring it in, and there would be a basin, and then there would be a dipper, and we just loved it. And then Grandma would, in the olden days, they would do their laundry at the river. And then there was new technology that came. And then, what do you call those boards? Huh? Washboards. Then, and I remember Grandma did this out in the wash house. And she would draw the water out, put it in a big tub, and she would heat the water, and then she would get her washboard, and then she would take her clothes out there, and then she would scrub it, and then she would hang it on the line out there. And then there was new technology, and then I remember this, that there was that, the wringer washer thing that was all, there wasn't any electricity, so it was all done by hand. And then they did finally get electricity, and Dad bought her a new washing machine, but she did not use it. The truth is, there are new technologies. Tell your neighbor, I'm not going to do my laundry at the river.